why did Jordan Peterson all of a sudden become mainstream? Why did Jordan Peterson all of a sudden blow up the way he did? What did he start talking about?
Because he's pushing a message that people are longing for.
Say that again?
He's pushing a message that people, they're longing for it. They're hurting for it. They want to hear it.
So he gave a message about what it is to be a man, okay? So he's helping boys become men. He's talking about personal responsibility.
Bingo.
The 12 rules of life. Clean your bed, make your do this, all these basic to think about. Nothing he said is like E equals MC squared. Oh my God. Everything he said is just basic stuff that,
Logical stuff.
Many people a generation ago were being taught that it skipped a generation that they're not teaching. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. This goes back to values and principles. This goes back to values and principles. Choose a religion, okay, that has got the right values and principles and start telling schools to pray. I don't care what it is, whether it's prayer, values and principles, 10 commandments. I don't care which one of these it is. Make it a requirement to start teaching basic values and principles. Now, of course, Adam's got a very good point because the responsibility is on the parent. So where this goes even more to, single family households where, there's a single parent household, kids are being raised by that. But this has to be the main. If there's any books that you can write right now that I believe will do very well that people want to read, if there's any channels you can create, any content you can create, anything you can write about, anything you can build your MO of your YouTube channel, your blog, your website, your whatever you're doing, this will do very, very well right now the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon. Because most of the churches that you go to nowadays, a lot of them are out of touch. This is being ran by a 72-year-old pastor, and he's giving messages that he has a hard time connecting with the audience. I went to a couple of them. One of the biggest churches in Dallas I went to, I sat there on Easter, and I said, dude, you just don't connect with me. I have a hard time connecting with you. Where's Dudley Rutherford, who connected with everybody in L.A., right? I think there's a big opportunity in churches, and I think there's a big opportunity for people who are teaching the right morals, the right values, and the right principles. Until we start doing that, and by the way, my messaging of what I'm saying, guess how long the shift's going to take with my strategy? How long do you think that's going to take?
20
2 decades.
Yeah.
2 decades. Yeah.
20 years.
By
2 decades.
By the way, not to bring it back to what I'm doing, but I'm going to bring it back to what I'm doing. You will find within the Latino community in the United States and Latinos in general, the adherence to parental obedience is bigger and better than it is in most other cohorts.
I
For
agree.
some reason, when I fear my dad's going to kick my ass for something I even thought before I did it, I tended not to do it. And we are raised that way. It's a moralistic kind of teaching, but somehow maybe it comes from Catholicism. I don't know. Maybe it comes from our own sense of Christianity. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'm not saying everybody has to be like, think like me because I happen to be a Christian. But something in the Latino DNA makes people less apt to want to be lazy and more apt to want to work and accept personal responsibility. And when I'm doing Rick Sanchez News, my podcast, that's something I constantly try to make sure that I talk about because it's about fitting the people to the argument, no matter what the story is on that day, which makes me think as we're discussing this, you're probably going to be less apt to see that kind of behavior in our community.
Well, I think
which is a good thing, by the way.
Having Cuban friends, I think it comes down to the chancleta.
Yeah.
They'll take you a sandal and they'll hit you over the head. I don't know what your parents used to hit me with. My dad was a belt, but in the Cuban household in Miami, they'll take a sandal.
My mother used to sit at the
you.
front porch in our house in Hialeah and say, "No te voy a pegar, no te voy a pegar." In other words, I'm not going to hit you. I'm not going to hit you. Come on in. I know I'd done that, and then she'd wait there by the porch, and as soon as I tried to sneak the house, whack!
Yeah,
she would hit me, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I knew this was going to happen, and she gets me every time.
Accountability.
My mom, who cooks a lot, Pat, she'd have a wooden spoon, like an old school wooden spoon, and we'd do something insane, and she would hit us, and it broke, which took her to a whole nother level because it was my body.
Now she stabbed you.
That broke. Yeah, but I think like especially with the Latino community, and I don't think it's a minority thing, but like Middle Easterns and the disciplining of your kids, and we were scared. The father, like 6 words, if your mother said, put you in your place. 6 words. Wait until your father gets home. That I'd be like, no. I'll clean, I'll kiss your feet.
Yeah.
Because if he knew, it was over. And I think that's gone away in this culture now. Is you can't even tell them anything because they'll get snitch.
How much?
They're like, you can't. He told me this. He told me that. He touched me.
How much of this has to do with technology and the fact that we don't spend enough time
It's big.
talking and sharing these
They
ideas?
just throw an iPad at them. Take this. Go. in the other
People,
room.
millions of people are probably going to be listening to this conversation because they don't have somebody to have a conversation with. So they have to rely on Patrick and his friends to have a conversation. And to a certain extent, that's great because at least we're having a cogent, decent conversation. But I would almost encourage those people once in a while to go have a conversation with your son or your uncle or your daughter or whoever, because I don't think that's happening. And that's what I see out of that story out of Highland Park, Illinois, that's not happening. When you live with a boy, because this kid was a boy, and he lives in your house, and you've been there 10 years living in that house with him, and a reporter comes and asks him, tell me about him, and you say, I don't know anything about him.
Right.
You got a problem.
Yeah.
And if that's indicative of America, we got a problem.
Yep.
Totally agree.
Final thoughts here. How much of a role does the president play on how fathers lead their kids? How much credence you put on that? Or is it more TV dads? Like, how there was a TV dad, Will Smith's dad, whatever his name was,
Uncle Phil.
Phil. And Bill Cosby was he was a TV dad. A lot of guys have played a TV dad. How much of a role you think the president, the leader of a nation, plays on how to help raise your kids?
Quite a lot.
What do you think? What do you think? I'm actually curious. I don't know the survey, but what do you think? You're saying quite a lot. What do you think?
I mean,
If he accepts it.
what I'm gravitating to is when on the debate stage when they asked Hillary and Trump to say one nice thing about the opponent, and Hillary
It's your
said,
kids, yeah.
One thing nice thing I'll
Yeah.
say about Donald Trump is at least you've raised some good
Yeah.
kids.
That's great. I mean, that was great.
So if what you guys are saying is true, which a tough father produces great kids, then how would you rate Biden's style of raising kids?
Not good.
I don't know.
Not well.
Because the product on how the product is doing, whether it's Hunter or all that other stuff, and then you look at a Trump or you look at Obama's kids, or you look at I don't see Michelle being a passive kid.
Me neither.
I see Michelle being tough. I don't see Obama being tough, but I see Michelle being tough. I see Trump having
They got
expectation.
good kids.
I see Eva.
Obama's have good
I
kids,
agree.
I think.
I agree. So to me, I don't know. And by the way, let me tell you, I don't think this is an 18-month thing since Biden's taken house. I think this has been a conversation we've gotten away from for a couple decades. You don't get to a point like this overnight. You get to a point like this, it's a gradual process of getting there. But to work it out of this place, it's not going to be a 2-year deal, a 4-year deal. I think
to
it's gonna take a
use
couple
your
decades.
great expression earlier today on
Yeah.
another matter, this man is an accidental president. So to use him as an example of what's happening from the president's standpoint.
But by the way, not all kids are created equal. I mean, for instance, he did lose a son, Beau Biden, who was a full-on military hero, Purple Heart, lost his life in battle.
Correct.
And so that's like someone
one
like
example.
him.
And the other one's
is
a
a
drug
lot
addict.
different from Hunter,
Who's a drug addict.
who's a full-on crackhead.
Yeah.
Who's a lot different from Ashley Biden, who literally I partied with at Tulane like back in the late 90s.
That's a fair point.
Who was a party girl. Like,
Gotcha.
So not all kids are the same. Just like, you have 4 kids. They're not all exactly the same.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.